Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the April 2nd, 2019 meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission and call it to order. Do I have a motion to maybe approve the agenda? Perhaps.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You guys seem to be a little bit more excited here. Okay. Anyway, I want to move on the consent agenda. Anything we need to change in the consent agenda?
No, I don't have anything.
John?
Approved the consent agenda.
You like? So we have a motion. Do we have a second? We're going to sit here all night long, guys.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Schwan, customers to be heard, recognitions.
No recognitions or customers to be heard, is it? Nope.
Cool. Thanks. Any old business?
Nope, well, not for me. John usually has something, but
John?
wow, we are going to get done quick.
Okay, wow. Let's move to number 8. Reports, City Council. Heidi.
I don't think I have anything to report. So, I'm sorry I don't have much of a voice
She has
either.
no
So
voice, yeah.
maybe that's why I'm not having anything to report, because I
Well, I
don't have
heard-
a voice to report.
Heard flood preparations are going well, so
Yep.
let's hope for.
We'll pause on sandbag operations right now. We're just waiting.
Cool. 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 Public Service Commission, any reports? Thank you, Heidi.
I do.
Yep. John, please.
And I think, Heidi, if you would like to add on the recent EDA meeting that was held, matter of fact, on Monday. And what I think is important to share, that there was a presentation from the downtown Moorhead group about a contract that they're entering into for Stan Tech. And Stan Tech is a group that is going to be working on downtown development of Moorhead. And it's a collaboration between the EDA, the city, the Kilburn group, a group out of Boston as far as consultants. And they put a plan together here of basically contacting citizenship to see what their thoughts are. And then they will make recommendations and reviews. And there was an approval by the EDA to fund this project here. In several years ago, there was initial contribution of $60,000, and the request was for $100,000, and that was approved by the EDA. So this project is going to go forward, and it is very optimistic for the group that presented here that they hired. I think there was quite a diverse group, and they really thought this was the group to go to because they have an exceptional history, and they're excited, and I think the EDA is excited as well as myself about this project. Dave, of course, has been an integral part of this, so certainly he'd be able to provide more information here, but I think it's something that just for sure staff is aware of, and whatever collaboration or whatever we need to do to facilitate this project, I think is important, because there could be lots of change in the next 5 years, which is positive.
Cool. And I know that I think all of our lines downtown are pretty much all new, right?
All the water ones, yeah.
With the center now, it's all new, so bring them on, we can connect them. Okay. Anything else?
Anything?
No, I would just elaborate a little bit by saying it really is kind of a comprehensive plan for downtown based on what the experts have to say, which was based on what citizens and current business owners have to say. So it really is kind of this all-encompassing, comprehensive plan for downtown. So, yeah.
Now, is that what it's called? Is it called a comprehensive plan, or do they have a name for it? Or
Well, hang on here, let me get
Downtown developmental.
Downtown Moorhead Master Plan draft.
okay,
It's going to be a living document here, as they get input from different participants, they may make modifications or additions or whatever the case may be. And there'll be regular reporting going on here as far as what they're finding. And I think from the proposal they said, it's kind of like a 3-month phase for phase 1, then there's phase 2, and then phase 3.
Okay.
Here for it. And if you're interested, it's on the EDA website, so
Yep,
if
we'll
you
take a look
just
at
go
it.
and take a look at that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a couple of master plans today too, so, yeah, I just want to know what it was called. But yeah, master plan makes sense.
So, yeah.
Thanks. Mr. General Manager?
I don't have anything really to talk about, other than one thing, but I just wanted to remind the commission that today's meeting is kind of a planning meeting. We do every other meeting basically that way. And, but under the general manager's report, I did want to remind you that on May 8th and 9th, so about a month from now, Missouri River has their annual meeting. It basically goes from noon on the 8th to noon on the 9th. And they usually get good speakers in there. This year, they've got a speaker from the Electric Power Research Institute that's going to be talking about, future, electric and environmental issues. And then they also have, they're going to have somebody come in and talk about cybersecurity. So they generally do that. They have some very good speakers, kind of an action-packed 24 hours of speakers. So if anyone wants to go to that, just talk to us.
Where's that at?
It's in Sioux Falls. So generally, we drive down there and get there at noon on one day and leave at noon the next day. So
I went last year. It was really informative. I mean, if you guys want to go, they're good speakers, natural speakers, and a good group of people to actually connect with. So it's an easy drive.
yep, that's all I had.
Cool. Item number 8D, flood preparation. Who's going to talk to that?
Travis is going to talk to that.
Travis Schmidt, Electrical Engineering Manager. Since the last 2 weeks, it's kind of ramped up a lot, last couple of days. So right now, the National Weather Service is roughly about just under 35 feet is what they're looking at for flood levels through next Tuesday. Other than that, that's really what we've currently got. Sounds like maybe a crest forecast later this week, but we'll let them handle that. Bill and I went to the flood preparation meeting this morning. It was the first one they had, so we're just helping out as needed. We've disconnected power to 4 of the city's facilities so far. So Gooseberry Park, the lights on 3rd Street that go right along the river underneath the bridges. Missing something here. What else am I forgetting? We shut off a flood control structure that they're not going to be using for this one. It's really low, so because of Woodlawn Park flooding. And so we're just kind of standing by and doing what we need. 15th Avenue North Bridge, we took the lights down today as well, too. So, but yeah, other than that, we are just working with the city on anything they need there and working on communications as needed, so.
Cool. Thanks, Travis.
Yep. And while Travis and then Chris was going to maybe talk a little bit about, we switched over to wells.
Yeah.
So.
Just a brief update with respect to our source water utilization. Late yesterday, we actually switched over to more well percentage, just based on the water quality conditions coming in from the Red River. So we still have the ability to run Red River as needed up through about 42 feet. The Red River pumping station is protected to that level. However, just in the interest of preserving the water quality, we just elected to generally increase our well utilization here over the next week or two. But if we need more river water, we'll bring it in as needed. So.
A couple other things too, just on the communications, make sure if you go to the city's website, you can go to the flood tab. In there, there's got a lot of notifications. Always update your code red if you need to, or your e-notifications if you want to get more flood information, what's going on with that too. So those are good things to have. Electric division, prior to any of the flooding events occurring, we actually cleaned the Brookdale sub too, made sure that that was in good order for the flood, so we didn't have any unplanned outages due to the chemicals they use for de-icing during the winter months. So that's taken care of as well. Other than that, that's where we're at. We'll continue.
Cool. And on the water side, what's the difference in taste? Would we even notice it?
I think we'd notice it. Generally, we ramp up our ozone dosages during flood season because there's a lot of taste and odor causing compounds that get washed into the river. Even with that effort, sometimes we're not able to get all of it. We had some taste and odor issues back in 2009 during that large flood event. So somewhat as a preventative measure, we really increased our allocation toward aquifer water just to mitigate that. When we do get the new filter media, commissioners might remember we just approved the bid award for construction of new media. That media has some ability to take out some of those taste and odor causing compounds that are present during these time periods. Unfortunately, that media isn't going to be installed till this summer, fall, so it's not ready right now. But nonetheless, customers may notice a slight change in the taste of water as a result of these source water allocation changes. And the taste changes primarily due to changes in mineral content. However, taste changes should be subtle, I would say, at this point.
So water is good, water is safe, just tastes a little bit differently.
To clarify, yeah, the water meets all EPA requirements for all the major disinfection things that we need to hit. So the change is purely based on aesthetics, just to maintain desirable taste and odor characteristics in our distribution system.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Just maybe an observation. I think I saw today that the governor an article today that the governor of Michigan can be now sued for the Flint issue. So I think that's something to just be really aware of, that how far our responsibilities and ensure that we keep the water safe. So I just thank all your efforts to keep us in compliance.
Cool. Who is willing to make a motion to accept the report?
Make motion to accept the report.
Anybody second?
Second.
Motion second. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No sign. Accepted. Number 8E, report on GIS master plan. Who's going to talk about that?
This is going to be Travis, and again, this is, kind of a planning meeting, so this is where we basically talk about this for a little while.
Yeah, we were going to have Candice, how do you pronounce her last name? Sharon Brock from Pro West present. Unfortunately, she fell sick this morning, so she was unable to make it. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about master plans, related both to GIS and both the water and electric divisions as well too, and just why we do it. So I'll let you bring up the PowerPoint here. So we hired Pro West back in January of 2018 to help us with a needs assessment and kind of master plan. Prior to that, for the GIS side, we had just kind of done internal master plans from when we started in roughly 2009 on. We felt it was time to get a third-party opinion on that, and it's something that we do both on the water side and the electric side too. And we'll be actually bringing a electric division master plan to you later this year. We're working with DGR Engineering out of Rock Rapids, Iowa on the electric side, so something that you'll be seeing coming down the road as well too. But really what it's a master plan is for is to just make sure, again, a third-party opinion, and make sure that we're following industry standards and best business practices. So that's really the big part that we want to do, is we want to make sure that, we're not going off on a tangent somewhere that isn't the right way of what we want to do. So that's the biggest thing on why we try to do master plans and why we have external resources help us with those. What's the anatomy of a master plan? There's roughly 4 parts to it. As you can see, they're up there. It's goals, needs, priorities, a budget, and then hardware integration, software integration, things like that. So when it comes down to the goals part of that, really that's a discussion with staff. And what Pro West did on the GIS side is they sat down in a room, multiple meetings with electric division staff, line crews, water crews, and just kind of understand how they use GIS and what they do with it on a day-to-day basis and how they can make it better or what else they would like to see that might be an improvement or something that could be a change to better their processes. So not only do they talk about the goals of what's needed, they look at other things too, again, making sure we're following what everybody else is doing and trying to just make sure we're on the right path forward. Once they've kind of got those goals, they try to put together what the needs are going to be over the next 5 to 10 years for a GIS or an electric master plan or even a water division master plan as well too. And then they try to prioritize those and put those in, okay, you need to do this first and then this, and try to just arrange it both from a budgetary standpoint but also to make sure that everything flows functionally correct as well too. So you're not doing something, you're not getting the horse ahead or the cart ahead of the horse. So, once they've got those needs and priorities in place, they try to get the budgets lined up so that we can provide a long-range budget plan for the commission to approve, and we can follow that. So we've got implementation plans as well too over the next 5 to 10 years roughly. So what is GIS? Well, in the past, we've had maps for years, and GIS isn't a map. It's more of a smart map is what we should probably call it. And it provides information, whether it's the age of equipment, the maintenance that we've done on it, or the type of equipment or material in the ground, whether it's cast iron pipe or open concentric electric cable that we are working to remove. So, we're just trying to utilize all of that information behind a map so that we can expedite and make decisions using the data a lot more efficiently than trying to go off of somebody's memory. And that's kind of what we're working for. And it's actually very interesting. Bill and I went to that flood meeting today. So in 2009, we had in 11 we had floods, and it's a lot different today. They're using GIS in a completely different fashion on how they're looking at different facilities and things like that. And it's really interesting how it's evolved in 10 years from a flood standpoint. So benefits of GIS. So again, we talk about mapping and visualization. And again, like we said, it's not just a map; it's all the information behind the map that's important. It's also giving the equipment to the guys on iPad in the field so they can look at this stuff real time as much as they need to help them make decisions or try to figure out what's wrong and things like that. So, and it's going to continue to advance as we go down the next few years, and Todd will talk about some of that stuff in a little bit as well too. Again, it helps with monitoring. We can monitor outages. We can monitor water leaks. Several different things that we can monitor, and then we can use those to do some analytics and help with design and planning of projects and things like that. Again, it helps the engineering side or the water division make good decisions based off of the information. So again, and then sharing and collaborating. Again, we work between the county, the city, and MPS on sharing information as needed to make sure that we're all working off the same data set, so, or as much as possible. So, building a foundation. So really what comes down to and what ProWest has kind of put together in our needs assessment and implementation plan is they're basically, we're looking for roughly a thumbs up or what do we need to do next. And they've basically stated that MPS has a strong foundation, and many staff are well versed in what they're utilizing, whether they they use it every day, or they're out in the field using it. Everybody knows what it is, and staff has done a good job of training everybody to use it and continue to use it. So ProWest has also provided direction to enhance and evolve the strong GIS foundation that we've already got in place, and just working on a few things that we're looking to do better in the future as well too. So other than that.
And Todd, introduce yourselves.
Yeah.
Todd Copeland, I'm GIS coordinator here at Moorhead Public Service, and let me get next presentation ready here. So as Travis had mentioned too, what ProWest went through and did over this last year was really help us to identify and develop, a GIS needs assessment and implementation plan. If you're interested in reading all the information about it, you're more than welcome to. We have a copy here for you to go through and review or look at as well as needed. So again, as Travis had mentioned earlier, really he just kind of went through and reviewed at a very high level what a master plan is, what GIS is, and then the benefits that both of those provide to the organization as a whole. And what I'm going to touch on a little bit more is just specifically the value GIS brings to all the divisions, the administrative division, electric division, and the water division. So what GIS is, GIS, or Geographic Information System, is a framework for gathering, managing, and analyzing data. It analyzes spatial location and organizes layers of information into visualizations using maps. GIS, though, reveals deeper insights into the data, such as patterns, relationships, and situations, ultimately helping users make smarter, informed decisions. MPS's GIS vision is to add value to MPS's administrative, electric, and water divisions by providing authoritative geospatial information to make these operations more efficient and effective. So kind of a preview of what we're going to talk about tonight a little bit is we're going to give you some ideas what some of the projects are where GIS supports each of the divisions. And we'll start off with the water division, looking at the water asset management plan and how we support that process. And then also just on a simple reporting standpoint, so some of the reports you see on a monthly or quarterly basis as well. With the electric division, more so looking at how GIS supports the electric master plan and outage reporting. In this case, we're going to focus on birds and animals or squirrels. The administrative side, we're going to focus on the advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, and facility planning. And then lastly, we'll talk about how GIS data analytics helps solve problems. So to begin with, we're going to talk about the water asset management plan. Now this is a unique one, right? There's a lot of different data sources or processes that go into really developing what, this water asset management plan and the decisions for, what areas of town or sections of pipe we're going to go through and replace each year. So this first map is really just representing our water distribution system based on pipe material and size. And then we're overlaying that on top of that is basically a heat map representing where all the active or current water leaks are at. Now, active water leaks basically means that there was a leak at a location, the crews went out, they fixed it, addressed the need, but that section of pipe hasn't been replaced yet. Next map we put in here is really to identify the same thing. We're looking at the same heat map, the same sections of pipe that are on the map, but then also identifying where previous projects were at, where that work was done. So we really started capturing that information from 2012 to current dates. And one thing unique about this map, I wish we had another heat map for last year. It'd be nice to inject into this. So projects that we worked on in 2017, 2018, more towards the south portion of town, that area did have a pretty strong concentration of water leaks down there. And the new heat map that we're showing here really shows how, the work that we did essentially replaces or eliminates those leaks in those areas. Next, again, just to highlight, just for us, for validation purposes, really is to go through, we'll show all the water leaks in the map. How does that overlay or how does it look with, the heat map and how is it representing the rest of the system as a whole? So the orange dots that are on the map is really indicating a specific leak that's occurred. And these leaks we're tracking from, I don't know how far back, it goes back and back to the 60s. So anything that's active in the system, we're continuing to track that. As we replace those water mains and those assets and the leaks start to, they become historic, and we're no longer really going to track them or use them for this part of the process. The last step in this process is really to go through and identify where we're going to do projects for the next year or following years. And with this one here, the green highlighted areas are indicating where projects are for 2019. Now, the one thing you may look at is like, well, why are they not in the areas where we have, active leaks, where there's a higher concentration of leaks? Part of the process, again, what Chris is going through and doing is identifying the initial projects, but then also collaborating with the city for where those projects that they're going to be working on as well. So we're not having to rip up the road, twice in the same time frame, or a year or 2 years apart, right? Just really evaluating those projects and collaborating with other entities as well. Next, we'll just look at real quick some simple things for reporting for the water division. We used to do this every month, where we go through and generate a water leak report on a monthly basis, and you would see that in your packet every month. We've since changed that to more quarterly. But this one in particular, I wanted to pull out, and this is February of this year, showing we had 14 water main breaks or leaks within the system. This time period would have been around that polar vortex where the guys were working their tails off, trying to stay ahead of the game and with all the leaks that were going on in the system. So just one of the ways that we can provide that data, just the data analytics behind it, to provide just a simple report. Again, something you're probably a little more familiar with is the quarterly report. So this is coming out every quarter. We're providing just an update, the total summation of leaks for that current quarter. And then the graph really is just there to represent, again, that same time period, that same quarter, but the year prior. And was there any differences, last year, this quarter, to where we are now? And just really to evaluate and look at that. Is there something that's unique to the situation, or is it just, the temperature that's causing the issues? The last one for the leaks or the reporting side is we generate every year just an annual water leaks report. And this again is just showing the entire system, the number of leaks we have for that year prior, and really identifying if it's a water leak, or like a main break, or if it's a service leak, or if we have a hydrant leak, or frozen services like we had this year. So we touched a little bit on, kind of recap on the water side. We went through and just looked at really the water asset management plan and how GIS is supporting that, as well as just some simple reporting. And next we'll look at how we support the electric division. And the first one off the bat is really looking at the electric master plan. You may ask, well, how is GIS supporting the electric master plan? And for us, this is something that was identified as an item in a previous GIS master plan, was to develop the electric network model. And really that is the critical component to developing that electric master plan. The electric master plan is what's critical or important to MPS to make sure we've got a good system. And really identifying that network model goes through and helps us plan for future needs. If it's substations, if it's different areas for line replacements or reliability type projects, but having that data in the background to help make those informed decisions is really what's going to be used to develop this master plan. So from that, kind of a little bit of a history lesson on this too. So all of our data in the past, when we did the electric master plan, was all looking at CAD drawings. And I'll show you a couple examples here. The CAD drawings really are just a static image of your system. Really don't have any data behind it. So with the new master plan, we're able to send them not just the map, the look and feel of it, where everything is, but we're able to send that data behind it, showing them the transformers and the conductors and the sizing that goes along with all that. And provide that information to, we're using DGR engineering, so we provide that information to them to have them go through and review the data we have, and then really develop that master plan for the next 10 years based on the data that's given to them. The benefit with this here as well is that we then have the ability to go through and take that information. We can do it more dynamically. It's more readily available to generate another master plan or just do load analysis on the data that we have just by using GIS. A couple examples. This one here, I know it's kind of hard to see. There's a lot of detail with these maps, but this one here is just looking at the CAD drawing, just the representation on the map. Good line work, good data that's there, but again, it's just a static copy. You don't have the ability to go through and look at the data behind that map itself. And this one here is GIS. This is looking at the GIS map. Again, the change with this is, again, you're looking at the map. It still looks clean. It just has the ability to add additional information to the GIS component for the electric side. It gives the ability for the line crew to click on a transformer and pull up, sizing information for that transformer or conductor information as well. Yeah, so I forgot about that. The one key component with the electric master plan, part of that process is developing a connectivity model. And that connectivity model really is developed from the substation down to the end consumer. So everything is electrically connected and as far as the network goes. So it's an added bonus to it where when you look at the CAD side of it, it's all a bunch of disconnected line segments as well. I know I'm hitting with you guys a lot of information. If you got any questions on it, definitely speak up. So. That's all right. So, yes.
So with this being a separate GIS system and this, couldn't this be an overlay on the GIS that the city already has?
It's a good question. So one of the unique components with the electric industry, and too, Travis, you feel free to interject here as well, but with some of the information we have on the electric side is really considered critical in nature, so it's more protected or it needs to be more secured, isolated or separated from other environments as well. So we don't have that ability we can share information out, but to actually consume it or use it within the same data sets or databases like the city would have, then we run into some other issues there specifically.
And that would make sense as far as a breach or,
Yep.
screw around with the grid or whatever.
Yep.
What about like the water though, like with the broken mains and things like that? That strikes me as something that actually might be beneficial to have as city, on the city map that people
Sure.
could access.
The same thing kind of goes with the water side as well. It may not be considered maybe as critical or as protected in nature as the electric side of it goes. But again, the data sets and the information we're collecting is more, I want to say is secured or is more private. We have other consumer information that we're collecting on the back end that we can't share as well. So we're looking at the Minnesota statutes for data privacy and data sharing stuff. So where that comes into play too. So there's other critical information besides just the electric facilities we're capturing. Yeah, feel free to interject.
We do share the public distribution system too, so the city can pull it in as a layer, and they do use it from time to time. So a lot of the critical information isn't present in that layer, but from a planning standpoint, they have the ability to pull that information.
Yeah, that's a good point because both the electric and water, if there is a need for a request, I mean, we do have data sharing agreements in place where people can consume that information if it's for their own internal use, whether it's through a map or an app, or if it's internally to the organization as a map service or something. Yes, Heidi.
Is this information, or are these maps, things that our GIS guy at the city could do? I mean, could he run these maps for you, or could he use the technology that we have at the city?
The technology is the same as far as applications go. It's again the issue I think that we'd run into there is again the concern for security and privacy of the data that we have.
I would think that the city would have some pretty high, top-notch security, in place, but it seems to me my concern would be from the city aspect is that we're not being wise with ratepayers' money by investing in an additional GIS project when we have that ability at the city. How much is all this costing?
Well, so we actually share in the Esri software. So we share that software with the city of Moorhead. We pay roughly 50/50, if that's what it is. We have staff, and the city has staff to manage the different systems. And I don't think it would be it's not a duplication of work, because what we're working on is different than what the city GIS staff is working on as well, too. And along with that, not only do we have that software, we have to have special software on the electric division to have that connectivity model that we need for our modeling and stuff like that as well, too. So it's a good question. I just don't think it's a duplication of work, or I don't think there's excess capacity anywhere that would be able to handle that either.
Please don't.
So, good questions. Next I want to talk about with the electric side is specifically looking at electric outages and reliability project support. And with this here, we're going to focus more so on bird and animal outages or squirrel killers, because a lot of them are related to squirrel related outages, right? So this heat map here is really taking a look at all of the outages from 2006 to 2018 that are related specifically to birds and animals. And again, looking at it, you're going to identify that it's predominantly in areas where there's overhead conductor as well. And the next map just kind of zoomed in a little bit more on some of the higher concentration areas. But the point here on this is looking at total number of outages, and the higher concentration of outages, you'll see the little purple dots getting larger in size, identifying more of an area that has critical or something we need to look at as far as maybe reliability type projects, or is definitely receiving a higher concentration of outages related to birds or animals. For the most part, they're related to squirrels directly. So with that, though, we have the ability to take all that information in and really provide kind of a report to engineering staff on potential projects, that could be looked at. Now, we're not here to direct or dictate, kind of work that needs to be done, but just really, again, providing the data to help them, use that and to make a decision on potential projects for the future. There's a lot of information on this map here, too. Really, it's looking at the top graph or chart is really identifying the total number of customers that are affected, outage minutes, how long they were all out total combined. And then the chart below it is really identifying the types of outages that occurred, if it's a squirrel outage or if it's an overhead conductor that failed, or a piece of equipment that failed. But just giving the engineering staff decisions or data to help them make some decisions on future projects. So we talked a little bit about the water side and the water asset management plan and the water leak side with the reporting. And then with the electric side, looking at how we can help support the electric master plan, and also addressing squirrel related or other outage type related issues on the system, and helping out with some reliability type projects. For the administrative side, one of we're going to focus on is the advanced metering infrastructure project support specifically, and then also facility planning. With the AMI project support, really what we did is we took a look at all the disconnections over the last 5 years. And really this is to help try to determine a good location for an AMI type pilot project, so to speak, or a phase 0 type implementation for AMI. So really identified where all the disconnects are at in the system, and then identified those. We settled on 5 key zones across our system, and those are highlighted there with each one of those numbers, a little closer view of that. Each of those zones, then we went through and did some analysis on it to determine how many approximate meters were in each one of those zones or those areas, how many customers or disconnections, I should say, were in that area, and then the ratio, how many disconnections per customer or per meter were in each one of those zones. And we identified them again 1 through 5 in order of kind of the greatest areas of concentration. And the interesting part about this too is these areas of concentration are really related to the higher population index. So these lotties are apartment units, or this zone 1 area specifically is right around the MSUM corridor around there. So the next question we got to ask for, an AMI type project is, well, where's all our fiber gateways, our nodes, to be able to get that information from, the new smart meters back to the headquarters side to be able to consume that information for billing or what have you. And so this here really represents the blue dots on the map, is identifying where all those nodes are at, or access points in our system, to be able to collect that information and bring it back in. So then we're able to work with IT and other staff to really identify where a good project is slated at, and then using that infrastructure in the background to help support that decision. So last thing we'll talk about real quick is facility planning. And with facility planning, you guys have probably seen a number of different maps relating to this here. This is a unique challenge, if you want to call it, for GIS, to really go through and identify different projects if we're wanting to show expansion projects or things that are coming down the road for MPS related, specifically in this case, water. So yeah, just a unique way to use GIS to help support kind of the administrative side for GIS. So last one I want to talk about, really, we went through each one of the divisions, but really how are we using GIS to help solve problems, the data analytics, the data behind, just the map itself, how we're using that to solve a problem. And this is a unique case where we had one of our linemen come and talk to us, how many outages have you had on, in this case, the yellow phase off of Brookdale sub? It's like, I don't know, let's take a look at it. Let's see what we have for data, and let's find out if we line up with what you're thinking. So this specific project, we started in, if it keeps up here, 2003 was the first part of the project where we replaced a section of overhead to underground. And this area here was heavy tree canopy and kind of hard terrain to get in and out of with it related to tree-related outages and getting it back up online. So they converted that overhead to underground. And then in 2013, we did the same thing. Again, accessibility issues, getting back there to fix an outage for the overhead conductor, and went underground through this area as well. The last phase of the project was last year, where we kept everything overhead. We just basically reconfigured some of the areas. So to the south part, we took out 2 transformers and put in 2 newer transformers, reconfigured that part of the development. And then the rest of the transformers went, we changed out from a conventional transformer to a completely self-protected or CSP transformer as well. And then to answer their question was, how are we looking at total outages for this area, and what's the reliability? We want to look at the reliability side of it. So for this specific area, we can identify total number of customers that were affected by it, average customer minutes that were out or off during that time period as well. So just give us that indice reporting for a specific section of line. Specifically related to outages, as of last year, we have not had any outages in this area after we did all the work. So if you look at the graph from 2006 on here to 2013, we had 3 or 4 tree-related specific outages and a couple of them related to squirrels. Once we did the conversion from overhead to underground, all those squirrel outages disappeared for that area. However, they managed to go a little further east. So imagine that, right? We have now since replaced, we reworked that area to the east, and as of now, we don't have any outages in 2018 or even 2019. So this is, again, we can use the information here and track it going forward to, as far as reliability type projects go, and validate the work that was done. So just a quick recap. Moorhead Public Service GIS vision, again, is to add value to MPS's administrative, electric, and water divisions by providing authoritative geospatial information to make these operations more efficient and effective. Again, just looking at the different various types of projects that we have for each one of the divisions for water, electric, administrative, and then how we use GIS data analytics to help, solve problems. The last slide, I'll kind of leave it up and just something to be thinking about, but MPS to infinity and beyond. Thought about throwing the new, what's his name, Buzz Lightyear on there. We got Toy Story 4 coming out, right? But really just some of the future endeavors and projects we're looking at down the road for future integrations, business intelligence integrations, so I like to call it. SCADA GIS integration is Supervisor Control and Data Acquisition is what SCADA stands for. We're actually looking to try tying that information together here, hopefully in this next quarter. And then at some point down the road, bringing in the Customer Information System, or CIS data, just to help provide additional data for making those informed decisions. And further down the road, implementing a computerized maintenance management system, or CMMS, that'll allow for more workflow, workforce type management solutions, work orders, service orders, materials management integrations as well.
One thing I was going to mention, and Todd, his last example kind of goes to this point. We have looked in our strategic planning as, whether or not we should underground our entire system for the electric side. And you would do that for two reasons. You do it for reliability, and you do it for aesthetics. And there are areas in town, I know 12th Avenue South, the city's looking at undergrounding or having us underground part of our transmission or our distribution lines for the aesthetics reason. But you'd also do it for, the birds and animals, i.e. squirrels, that cause us lots of problems. The other reason you do it is because of ice storms. And south of us, there's quite a few utilities that are undergrounding their entire system at quite a cost because of the potential system-wide outages because of ice storms. And we are going to be using GIS data and information from other utilities to determine whether or not we do that here in Moorhead. In some respects, you'd like to, just make the decision and say, yep, we're going to do it. But it's awfully expensive. And so we really do need to make sure that we, can justify doing that. But that's one area where we'll be working real hard. And, Todd will be gathering data and we'll be analyzing to see whether or not we do that or not. Otherwise, and Travis can talk about this, they do targeted overhead to underground conversions. And like we did in Oakport, really. When we replaced Xcel Energy's system up there, we undergrounded quite a bit of the system, but left some of it, overhead, basically the service lines overhead, but would probably have a much higher reliability, and, the cost was going to be incurred anyway because we had to replace all the transformers and lines anyway, so we just put it underground. So, I mean, that's one strategic area that we're going to be looking at pretty hard, so.
I have a question. Thank you. Bill, asking a question, piggybacking on that, roughly, and I'm not holding, I just ballpark figure, what would we be looking at to put everything underground? Roughly. Gazillions?
Travis gets that one.
Like,
Yeah, good question. So, yeah, that's a very, very difficult question to ask.
I'll help
There's roughly about 30 to 40% overhead facilities in the city of Moorhead. We did provide some information on 12th Avenue to city staff on what it would cost to underground that. And I think we had a cost going from roughly 20th Street to probably 5th or 6th Street, somewhere in there, wherever the overhead lines stop. And it was well above, it was probably around that 1.2 million, if I remember right. It was very expensive. So that's just one street. So.
well, I was just curious as a ratio as far as comparison to what are we spending on squirrel issues?
Right.
That's another, I'll let you go, Ben, I can answer the school thing.
Well, the other, Alexandria, Minnesota is putting their entire system underground. And I believe they're spending $20 million over the next 10 years to do it. Now, if they're probably a third our size, so it could cost $60 million to put ours underground. And that, to me, sounds actually a little light. But we will be analyzing that. They're a little bit further south, so they're a little more at risk of having ice storms, but not that much further south. So, I mean, if we did have an ice storm that went through and, it would take out a lot of the city, and, that's a concern. And other utilities Marshall, Minnesota also went all underground lot in Iowa has gone all underground. The problem I have with underground and the challenge that our engineers have is I know that underground costs twice as much to put in than overhead, and it lasts half as long. So how do you make the business plan work under those basic scenarios? So it's, so a few outages are fine, and we're trying to minimize those and target those. Undergrounding the whole system is very expensive, but we are looking at that, and that's a strategic item that we're continuing to look at.
And one question, so all the new stuff is going underground anyway, right?
All the new stuff, yeah. So your percentage of equipment that's overhead is going down every year, just because everything new is underground. So, yeah, good point.
Another thing to add to that, when we did Oakport, we looked at it from a cost basis, and it was roughly about $30,000 or $40,000 cost difference to install new overhead lines or install underground lines. So the initial install is similar in price. It's the additional maintenance over the next 50 to 100 years that's gonna increase the cost. So it's a life expectancy thing. So, and then you had your question on squirrels to other outages. We are very reliable. MPS has really good reliability. I think we're roughly in that 25 minutes per customer on an annual basis. And I think 52 is to getting to the 4 to 5 nines. It's 5 minutes is 5 nines, and 52 minutes is 4 nines of reliability. And we're right in the middle of that right now. So, and it would be very expensive to try to get to that 5 nines number. Do we want to get there? Yes, but it's very expensive to do that.
Well, I will say kudos to the MPS crew. In the winter we've just gone through and survived. The power was there and so was the water. It was all good.
Well, thanks for the presentation. Any questions, guys?
Who prepared this document?
So that was a document prepared by Pro West and Associates. They went through after they did the needs assessment and master plan review, did a case study review on kind of the process that we went through.
And how is it going to be used?
Really, that's just it's a benchmark tool for us to kind of stand up against. Really, it's kind of gives us that summary as a high level to go through and look at. It can be used as a publicity kind of a PR statement as well of how we're using GIS too.
I didn't get a chance to read it all, but when I started here on the commission, I noticed we use a lot of acronyms. I don't see the global information system terminology in here once. I see GIS. So if we're going to use it as a publicity document, we may want to have that explanation like Travis gave us. And again, I could have barely missed it here. But you went into and explained what GIS is, and for the public, I think that would be a valuable piece to either add or make it, whatever the case, to this document.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's very good.
Cool. No other questions? Should we accept the report?
Make a motion to accept the report as written.
Second.
Proposed.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Accepted.
Opposed?
Was it?
Oh, wait, the end one, what?
You oppose it?
Yes.
You oppose it? Okay.
Yeah, I would actually like a little more information before I commit to it, is what I'm thinking. I heard some things that were some moving parts that I would like some more information on.
Yeah, just a report though, so I mean.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Item 8F, LAWA, water.
You can take that down, actually. Chris Knutson, Water Division Manager. Just wanted to provide a brief update with respect to the Red River Valley Water Supply Project, and I'll just kind of provide a brief recap, and then we'll get into the specific nature of the update. So the Red River Valley Water Supply Project is generally a project to bring Missouri River water all the way to the Red River Valley, so bringing water mainly to Fargo, Grand Forks, and other water-using entities in the area. The project's been ongoing for quite some time. It's about a $1 billion project that the state of North Dakota has been working on for quite some time. Recently, a significant amount of engineering has been completed on the project. The state has continued to fund it as primarily a North Dakota funded project. Although the financing piece is still going to be a big item of concern moving forward for the project, because it's a $1 billion project is very difficult for the water utilities in the area and the state to subsidize. Nonetheless, there's been some recent developments with respect to the project that we wanted to provide an update on. We still are very involved in the project. We respectfully withdrew from the project in 2016 as a paying member. However, Ralph Maynard-Millen is still on the board for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. We still are very active in attending the meetings and are involved in the project. So we wanted to provide an update with respect to a recent development with the project. Mark Pritchard, our water plant supervisor, has been involved on a number of the committees with respect to this development, so Mark will be providing a brief update.
All right, thank you for the introduction, Chris. My name is Mark Pritchard. I'm the water plant supervisor. As Chris stated here a moment ago, the reason for this update is due to some various potentially large changes to this project. Originally, as Chris had stated, this project was designed to take Missouri River water and let this water go 167 miles east to supply the Red River Valley in the event of a 1930-style drought situation. There's been recent developments over the past year where specific end users have been asking to study a potential reroute of this pipeline. They want to potentially see a study taken by the Lava Board to look at a Upper Cheyenne discharge, which would be approximately 9.6 miles upstream from the existing Devil's Lake outlet. This project change is technically feasible, so at the technical advisory committee level, where I've been pretty heavily involved for the past year, there's been much debate and discussion on potential cost changes and the associated risks associated with those cost changes. Primarily, the main change would basically remove about 42 miles of pipe. And at 72-inch pipe, that is a significant cost savings. If the existing permitted allocation for withdrawals from the Missouri River stayed at 165 CFS, there has been discussion on potentially saving up to $197 million on this project. The risk associated with that is there is 189 additional river miles of transveyance needed to get the water to the same location at the end. So with that additional extensive length of open transmittance that is not protected via pipeline, it raises the reasonable assumption to see additional losses in that stream as the water flows to Lake Ashtabula. As I said, the potential cost savings, if everything were to remain the same, could be as high as $197 million. Where that cost begins to be eaten up is the potential upsizing to account for those additional losses downstream as the water flows. Depending on how big the pipeline would need to potentially be upsized, or if there would be permits at the intake structure that would need to be reopened and reallocated for higher flow tallies, that potential cost savings could go from $197 million all the way down to nothing or less. So there is a lot of questions that need to be answered. There is still a lot of study that would need to be taken place to ensure that the losses would be something that the project would be able to absorb if they chose to go that route. And at the last board meeting, there was much discussion on whether or not the project needs to look at that potential turnout to head north. So in the coming weeks and coming months, there will be some pretty significant decisions at the LAWA board level that determines whether or not this project decides to investigate this route.
And then I understand that the cost-sharing model failed in North Dakota, right? It was an 80-20 proposal, and that failed. last week.
I hadn't heard that update, but,
Yeah, there was, I think they went down to 25/75. So the idea is, who pays for the project? And the initial assumption was 90/10, so 90% the state, 10% the users, basically. That went to 80/20, and then I understand that didn't make it last week. So the money issue is going to be a big one.
the funding is really the primary driver on the project in that it's $1 billion. That's a lot of money for Fargo, Grand Forks, and others, the state included, to pick up. So big, I think they looked at some models for even end user impacts on a specific monthly rate. I can't remember exactly what it was for Fargo, by $20 range at least.
It was actually $12.07, which would be, depending on the upsizing that they would need to do, it would be between a 31 and a 34.4% increase in existing rates. So it's substantial.
And we mentioned the 1930 style drought. That was about 800 days of no river flow, wasn't it? Somewhere around there. So
Yeah.
Approximately.
somewhere around there. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Just a question. I think we're seeing more and more water rights issues. Any further discussion about what Canada will think of releasing this water, or the states downriver as far as taking their water here? Is that any more discussion or anything updated in that area?
That was,
Yeah, we got a letter from Canada already saying here's some requirements on the water quality that we want to see. And I believe there's negotiations with Missouri and who's the other state? I thought it was the two states, Kansas, Missouri. So there's going to be pushback because we would be pulling out 160 some CFS. So
that would be the big issue of opening up those permits again. The permits they got on the intake and on the discharge structures, I believe they were contested by both states. They could still continue to contest those permits even as the construction is ongoing. But nonetheless, it's the legal process for the project, I would say, still very much open.
any other questions? None. I would entertain a motion to accept the report, or not.
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thanks for the report. Item number 9, this is the important item, right? Artwork.
Very important.
Very important.
Well,
Who's talking to
I'll start the introduction. We've gone through a lengthy design process for the upcoming Southside Water Tower. The tower is actually scheduled to be bid next week. So today we're looking for approval on the alternates for the Southside Water Tower. A little different than in the past. We don't have the price information yet because the project hasn't bid yet. So we'll get the pricing information on April 9th here. And ultimately the commission will get to choose whichever particular alternate they'd like to have. So today we're really looking for approval of both alternates. Again, as we get that pricing information as a result of the bid process, one option will have to be selected. With me today is Carrie Kinslow. She'll be speaking to kind of the process that we used to develop the artwork, and then some of the concepts in the artwork itself. So.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. I'm Carrie Lee Kinslow. Thank you for having me here today. I'm wearing my art wardrobe, so I get a little wild and crazy with the earrings. Sorry. I'd love to tell you about the process. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having the type of commission and community that permits this kind of process and engages the community to have a voice in what they want to see on these water towers. We first sent out postcards to the surrounding neighborhoods to ask for their involvement, which meant having an open house, an open forum for public discussion, And it also allowed them to give us feedback on a online survey that we put out on the postcards. We put them on a social media campaign, and the city was involved heavily in getting that information out as well. After gathering that data and having the open house, we formulated a great troop of people to have the design committee formed, and that was a group of wonderful members from the Moorhead Public Service staff and the commissioners, obviously, and then we had city council members and some community members as well as myself and Mark and Chris. The design committee's priority was to work with two artists, Stephen Dorsey and Jack Lundy, who were heavily involved and chosen immediately for the first water tower in North Moorhead, Oakport, where I hail from, actually. So it was wonderful to see artists from the local region chosen to participate and give a voice to those water towers. They did such a bang-up job that, of course, it made sense for them to work on the other two towers. The Woodlawn Tower was a project very similar to this one, so we really had a good grasp of the process and the concept behind gathering that data. I was on the design committee then, and I'm honored to be the facilitator for that now. This water tower has been so much fun. We've pulled together that data and gathered some of the themes that the people in the community really wanted. And those themes, basically what the community members decided was that they wanted something that had to do with nature, which I think we can all agree is something that we hear a lot about. Don't worry, there's no squirrels or turkeys. Although I have to say, my husband is an electrician and his nickname is Squirrel, and after the last few presentations, I'm feeling a little concerned. But no, they wanted Moorhead to be used in a cohesive way as it was in the previous two towers. And that really, and if you look at the design, I think, do they each have a copy, or is it just, okay. So if you look at the design, you can see the font. Each one of the towers is unique in its own way, but there is a cohesiveness in the use of the fonts, and the script is all, it's more of a flourish design, and then it's centralized on this one, just the north side of the tower. The colors are all used in a way that pull from the previous two towers. So we have those dark blues and the light blue of the blue stem directly behind the font of Moorhead. You also have those golds that pull in that gold that was used from the Oakport Tower. You have a lot of icons that pull from the other major themes that we received from the data, and that was that nature was not just the only thing, but recreation. So a lot of the icons and symbols that we have are actually used in kind of a double meaning kind of way. So you may have the trees, but then you have the runner and the kids pulling the kite. You have the bluegrass, but you also have the golfer. So these icons are used in a way so that they have double meaning, and they're serving a dual purpose. The other major theme was the blue stem. That kept coming over all of the opinions and voices from the community members, was how important that icon is, especially for South Moorhead. It really worked well because in the other two designs you have that circular pattern, but this being composite tank, we didn't have to stick with that spheroid design as the other two, but yet to make it cohesive, you still wanted some of that circular almost a branding logo style. So the blue stem actually serves that purpose really well. You almost don't immediately notice it, but then you have the musician kind of rocking out with the sunset behind. You also have nods to the agricultural part of that town. Where the south side tower will be at is actually surrounded by not just neighborhoods, but also fields are still out there. So the agriculture part is also very important. The various bold colors, while being pulled from the other towers, we looked at other colors because one of the things that the design committee really wanted to focus on was academia and how important it is for, as families being bringing up their children in Moorhead, school is really important. However, that was the one thing that was really hard to come to a decision on. So that's why we kind of steered clear of any school colors. We did throw in the MSUM Concordia funky tree, as you can see on the one side. I know personally I've had our family photos taken in front of that tree. There's college graduates, children hanging from the branches. So while it might not be an academic icon per se, it still has that connotation of something that children and families look to fondly. As far as the design, the designs that you see here are the designs the design committee has approved going forward, and we're hoping that the commission here will love them as much as we do, and I would love to hear your feedback so far. Anything else would you like me to add?
Just want to acknowledge all the committee members, city council members. Steve Gertz and Chuck Hendrickson were involved, as well as city staff, Lisa Bodie and Kim Satrowski. So a lot of effort from a lot of different folks, and then of course our commission members. Appreciate all the effort that went into it, and
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's safe to say that the painters will hate us, right? Because of the complexity of the...
Yeah, we'll see how the bids come back. That'll be a big part of it. But yeah, we're looking, basically what's happened at this point is these two options have been incorporated into the project specifications. So we'll find out pricing as soon as it's bid on next week there.
So what do you want us to do at this meeting? Approve either one, or?
We actually want you to approve both alternates because both alternates were included in the bid package, just so that we could get an idea as to the relative cost difference between the two. So we're actually looking for approval on both alternates, and then once we approve the bid for the project, we'd make a decision to pick one or the other. So you'll see them again. We'll have to kind of make that decision later once we have some bid information.
I just wanted to tell you, I love both of them. We should put up another water tower so we can use it all. I am still in awe of what these artists do, and they're just fabulous.
They have an uncanny ability to work with many people and many voices, and they are so excited about working with community, which is what makes both of them ideal for this project, or any water tower project really, that comes along with a process like this. They've been open from the get-go. So.
Could you give a little more information? I believe the top one is a wrap, a 360.
Yes,
and is
sir.
the second one more of just a cap then, or could you just give a little bit more?
Absolutely.
Of a summary?
So the top schematic you can see will wrap around the entire composite tank. The dimensions are there so that you can see exactly how far it goes. The second one, the smaller design, the more simplified design, does not wrap around all the way. It also doesn't have all of the elements that the community really found important to put on there. So I think that's why we're hoping that the wraparound will be chosen. I think it's a more comprehensive view of what the community voice is saying. No, Moorhead would not be on both sides. It is this, either way, it's facing north.
It'll be, straight north.
Cool. Any other questions? What do you guys think should be, so anyway, so the idea is we approve both alternates, bids come back, and then we make a decision basically on the base of the bids, the final decision on the base of the bids.
Correct.
Yep. Cool.
Can I make a motion?
Please.
I'd like to move to approve the final artwork alternatives for the Southside Water Tower. Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion approved.
I was. Thank you for. Some great people to work with.
And I mean, I've seen there's actually a business in town who has the water tower on their website as the main entry point to their website. So that's the Woodlawn one. So.
Well, that one actually won the national, third place in the national contest that it was entered in. So let's see what this one has.
Let's see. And to your point on another water tower, what do those things cost for a new water tower?
Oh, the construction estimate. Construction estimate for the project is 2.6 million. Total project cost roughly 3 million. So the percentage basis of the logo actually pretty small. Yeah. We're used to dealing with recoding projects and rehabilitation projects like Woodlawn and Oakport, where on a percentage basis there the logo was a little bit higher. Here it's not going to be as substantial.
Well, then we're going to get a really nice one. What is that water tower called now? The one on 94? Identity Tower. Okay, there we go. And that's next year, right?
Correct. It'll be painted in 2020. So the concept is that this project we'll start construction this summer on South Side, finish in July or August of next year, at which point the I-94 water tower or Identity Tower will be, they'd start construction on that rehabilitation process at that point. I believe the city is ongoing in their development of artwork for that project.
Good.
Chris, I was asked at BDA, what is the address going to be of the new water tower? Do you know offhand?
It's 4255 28th Street South.
Would you repeat that?
4255 28th Street South.
Thank you.
There is a sign out. There's been a sign out there for a couple of years. So.
It's the first thing I did when I found out I was doing this. I took a nice drive.
Great. Item number 10. Water mains. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation.
Just wanted to provide a brief update with respect to some of the ongoing, currently planned construction this summer for water main replacement. And this project has two components to it. The first component is the industrial park component. The second component is the 8th Street component. I'll talk briefly about those. I just wanted to kind of bring them to your attention with respect to traffic impacts and kind of the public interface that we have on both of those projects. For the industrial park loop project, we're basically taking water main from 40th Avenue South and adding a connection to the industrial park, connecting to water main at 34th Avenue South. And the intent of this project is to provide a redundant feed for the industrial park and to enhance fire pressure in the event of a fire in the industrial park. So a critical project that's been on our radar for several years. That'll have some challenging components to it, but nonetheless an important project to complete. Component number 2 is the 8th Street water main replacement from 12th Avenue to 20th Avenue South. This water main in particular has been plagued with water main breaks, particularly between 18th Avenue and 20th Avenue South. We've had a number of them. And then we have to do pretty significant traffic control when we have those events. So it's it's a disruption to both traffic and our operations. So we've had this one on our radar for probably the last 7 years. So it'll be a significant project to complete, and MnDOT is going to be resurfacing that area in the next several years. Not so much a coordinated project in the sense that actually most of the main replacement will be happening underneath the sidewalk or next to the sidewalk there. So we'll be out of the road section for that component of the project. Nonetheless, there will be some points where we tie into water main within 8th Street, and so we'll have some single lane closures on 8th Street, but we've been in contact with Concordia on several items. They're well aware of the project. We'll continue to work with Concordia as we begin construction on the project. One thing to note is pretty flexible time frame. The project actually is open for construction through June 30th of 2020. The reason we left such a long time frame to complete the construction is that the local underground construction market is pretty saturated through July 4th of this year, so we needed to provide some flexibility to meet the market need. And then finally, one component of the project, we had initially envisioned this project to tie together with Center Avenue as a drinking water revolving fund funded project. Based on the Center Avenue bids that we received, we elected to fund this directly from bonds instead of utilizing that funding source. It just didn't pencil out really for us to use that drinking water revolving fund, so we're going forward without that. We actually notified them just today that we'll be moving on from that funding source, but notify them that we definitely appreciate their support into the future. And Nancy may want to add.
So we have been working with the Minnesota Public Facilities Association and looking at financing, and we've done financing through them a couple of different times. Once for a high service pump station, which was about a $13 million project, and the City of Moorhead Sims water main replacement. We did finance both of those through PFA and received very favorable interest rates in doing so. In this project, it's a little bit smaller. There's a couple different bidders that'll be bidding on the project. And we think the additional requirements, cost requirements from the dwarf funding or the PFA just made it unfavorable to look at that right now. So the cost differential between traditional construction and construction that meets their requirements was about a 23% increase, or going from about can't remember my numbers now on Center Avenue. It was, I want to say, 800,000 to $1 million, so substantial cost increases. So we'll backpedal and go to our traditional bonding this year, and we will at the next commission meeting, we'll be bringing a letter that the commission will need to approve to send to PFA to end our participation in this year's program. And we'll keep those options open for other projects in other years. So this one just didn't make sense for us to go forward.
Cool. Any other questions? Thanks, Chris. Anybody entertaining a motion to approve this item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, John. Any second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Let's replace some water pipe, right?
Yeah.
So that stretches from the overpass at Concordia going all the way south to the next traffic light, right?
Yep, correct. Yep, all the way down to 20th Avenue. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris, I interrupted you.
No, that's a lot of
Yep. Closed meeting we don't need to go into, right? We have some upcoming meetings. Bill, are we going to do the 16th, or are we going to move that meeting?
We actually, because of the timing of some of the projects, we have to have that meeting. If we need to, delay the performance review of the general manager because not all the commissioners are here, we can just have a special meeting like the week after that, so.
Okay, so next meeting is April 16th.
Yep. We are planning, however, to cancel, or we'd like to cancel, we'll talk to the chair about that, the May 7th meeting, because the MRES annual meeting is then, so.
Cool. Because our next meeting would be the 7th, and then 8 and 9 is the MRS meeting. Right?
Yeah.
And again, if any of you want to go, it's really, really interesting. It's a short drive down there anyway. Cool. Anything else?
Nope.
Yep. John?
I'm not sure if it would be Travis or Chris on that. The Travis, I think the generator test was completed here a few weeks ago.
Yep.
If you want to just give a quick summary of that,
Yep.
of what you did and
Sure.
why it's important.
Yep, so quarterly so we have a 10 megawatt diesel generation station right by the Moorhead Youth Hockey Arena. And that was built back in 2010, 2011. That's when it went online, it was 2011. So we have been operating that, and it actually replaced our old power plant that was on the river. And we have a contract through Missouri River Energy Services to have that as a backup supply if ever needed. And it roughly pays for, I think, 2/3 of the cost, or 2/3 of the cost of the construction was paid for through this contract with MRES. And so as part of that, we have to do a quarterly run of that system for an hour. So we start about 15 minutes or so to bring everything online, runs for an hour at the top of the hour to the next top of the hour. And it just shows that the generating station can run and has the ability to turn on at pretty much any point in time. And then annually, we have Missouri River Energy Services employees come up and we do an annual urge test. And usually in the fall, we provide that letter to you in the GM report as an update that we pass that. And it's a good thing to do as well. It allows us to find maintenance issues and things like that, so we can take care of those on an ongoing basis.
Thank you. And I just would encourage the other commissioners, if you haven't had an opportunity, to take the opportunity to see what we have in place. It's I had a chance to walk through, and when those generators get going, it's an impressive operation. So I think Eric was out there.
Yeah, Matt Marks was out there, our project engineer. Yep.
Yeah, for it.
So yeah, and we'll have another one probably in June. So we'll send out another invite to let you guys know if you want to attend.
Cool. Thanks. I have a question as well. 2021st Street, are we done with our side of the things?
We have, for the most part, we're done. Everything is back to normal there. We have a couple minor things that we need to take care of, and we'll take care of that over the summer or during construction season, just to alleviate a couple problems. But not until Ames is in those areas can we do it. So we're trying to work around them a little bit. So.
Well, when are we doing water? Is that coming up then?
Water for the transmission component of the project was complete last year for both the river transmission line and the finished water transmission line. There's some minor relocations that will happen this spring. There are actually some of the temp water is currently being or will be set shortly. So you'll see some temp water in the Tasty Freeze area, but just some minor work to get our water main relocated out of a retaining wall area.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Should we adjourn? Would someone like to move?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
We're done. Thanks, guys.